Hey, Gertrud, how are you? I think you're on mute. Now let's see if I can hear you.
This way?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Is the lighting better this way? I turned on the light, but it's so I better take it
Yeah,
down.
I think this is fine. We can see your face fine. The rest of the room is dark except for the whiteboard and behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in an office or this is your home?
This is my office in my home.
Yeah, I'm in my home office also. In fact, I'm going to open the window shade. Sorry, you can
It's
probably
dark.
see.
At 4:30, it's getting dark here.
4:30. Hubfield?
Hmm?
Oh, that's right. Sundown is around 4:20 here.
Yeah.
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 We are on a similar latitude, I think.
Yes. You said north of Frankfurt, right?
Yep.
So do you know where Schriesheim is?
Schriesheim sounds a little bit south. I don't know. I have to look it up.
It's within driving distance, half hour to an hour of Mannheim.
Yeah. I thought it's a little bit
I only mention it because I visited Germany one time, and Schriesheim and Mannheim were where some of my friends were, so I visited there one time.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I experienced the Autobahn.
Yeah.
Hey, Doug.
We do have some speed limits, but not everywhere.
So where there is on the Autobahn, is there a speed limit beyond which it's foolhardy to drive?
There are lots of speed limits everywhere. So mostly it's about somewhere between 100 and 120 kilometers. But there are some where people are 200.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think the speed limit and cars are our guns.
Yeah, that's when I experienced a local, fairly young German in his BMW, and I was in the back seat, and he took it up to 256 clicks. Yeah, that was between Schriesheim and Mannheim.
Yeah, Schriesheim is somewhere there, but I'm not sure exactly where. But I can ask Dr. Google.
No, it's not that critical. I just mentioned it as a trivia point since I was there one time.
Mm-hmm. But this is very busy with lots of autobahns. There's many parallel, and this is a knot in the middle.
Okay. Hey, Doug.
Yes, sir.
Please don't call me sir.
We don't have to stick to German geography.
Mm-hmm. Doug, hopefully later today, I hope to have some time to. You piqued my interest on this thing that you sent me.
Oh, I think you'll like it.
Cool.
I do. It sort of provides a context and explanation for what the narrative you shared, but also where you stopped, and this sort of takes it home.
Okay.
And the parallels are staggering. It's really, and I was really, it was sort of like I had to go, and it was maximum potential, value contribution to you. And I was like, oh God, okay, let me ping him.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
By the way, sometimes I stop because I feel like I've been talking too long, not necessarily because I think that's where I ought to stop, but sometimes I also stop because I think this is enough because I've already pitched in too much.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever too much. I come from a firm belief in the concept of open source being, and so the more it's possible to sort of share and put out there, the greater the potential for help, for collective contribution, for understanding, for probably biggest on the list, recognition that we're all the same.
Yeah. By the way, a lot of those thoughts are behind the reason that I moved here to Washington State and selected this particular place. When I was renting, after my divorce, initially I was renting in a very small one-bedroom that I eventually had to move to a two-bedroom. But that two-bedroom that I was renting eventually became so expensive that, just in context, it was about 1,000 square feet. So something like, a little over 30 square meters for people who measure it that way. And I couldn't afford anything near Seattle because Seattle, again, is one of these very expensive places. So I had to expand after months. I had to expand my area of search. And that was when I discovered Camano Island. And two things really surprised me about it. Number one, how affordable it was compared to the rest of Seattle, because it is far. I have to drive 80 minutes to get into Seattle. But the other was how beautiful it was, and what a kept secret, well-kept secret it was. That, everybody's heard of Orcas Island, Whidbey Island, San Juan Island, Orcas, all those other famous ones, Friday Harbor. But very few people talk about Camano Island. And so I looked up this place, and it was within a few $100s, the same price I was paying in San Jose. But it was listed as a 5-bedroom house.
Wow.
On the water with 0.7 acres.
Wow.
So after I looked around at 12 or 13 or maybe more places, this was the one that I selected and, was within that range of affordability. But when I got here, I had to count 3 times because it counted 7 bedrooms. Because they didn't want to list it as a 5-bedroom place. But I initially wanted a 5-bedroom place so I could bring friends and visitors and have those meals and have those conversations by the fireplace and have those ping pong games and have those big dinners where we can actually do this open source sharing you're talking about. So I was even more happy once I got here and found out there were 7 bedrooms rather than 5, because now I can bring more friends. So actually, ever since I've been here, I've been inviting friends. Some people have stayed for as long as 3 weeks, and some have stayed for 8 days, and some have stayed for only a weekend. But in little bits and pieces, I've had that ability to invite friends here and have that fun, almost family-like interaction. And I would love for each of you, including those viewing this video later, to just say, hey, I'm going to be in the Pacific Northwest. Let me take a little detour and go visit Sam on Camano Island and do it. It is very remote. So if you like stepping out of the house and just immediately finding a coffee shop, this is not it. Okay. Or a workout center or, anything. But if you like nature and you like trees and you like breathing good oxygen, this is a good place.
Thank you for your invitation. It's I hear it's a standing invitation, and once I make it over the pond.
Yes, and Doug, it's even easier for you.
Yeah, no, I actually we have friends my wife and I have friends who live on Vancouver Island, and so we're long overdue for sort of a West Coast swing.
Nice.
One of these.
Where are you located?
Me, I'm East Coast. I'm Greater New York metro area, just over the Hudson in Jersey. But I was a New York City kid, born and raised. And
But Doug, you've also mentioned Canada, right?
not as residential, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. There's Glenn. There's Tammy.
Good to see you.
I managed to find the right link this morning.
Did we have some link issues?
Yeah, Thursday I did. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
By the way, I just got done extending an invitation to all viewers of this video and all participants on these videos to come and visit me here on Camano Island. So I was just describing some of that to Geertruid and Doug. Glenn, Tammy, how are you?
I'm great. I had a wonderful weekend. I was on a weekend retreat with some really amazing people, kind of meditation activity weekend, and yeah, it was just totally amazing. And looking forward to seeing you again. Unfortunately, I couldn't be here last Thursday because I had internet trouble. So, but, yeah, you've been on my mind. So,
But Glenn, your microphone sounds much better today, almost as good as it's ever sounded.
oh, well, great. Yeah, maybe yeah, the angels are with us. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Where is that?
Mm-hmm.
I've woken up 15 minutes ago, so this is what I like to call peepers. And yeah, I'm working on keeping my energy clear and clean, and riding the wave of everything that's happening, and staying on top of the wave rather than
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And it feels good. Yeah, I'm doing good.
Mm-hmm.
I met with Sam yesterday, and we had
Oh,
we did a session where it was neat. There was a bunch of frustration that came out, and at a certain point of the session, I was just like, we get a frustration-free card. This is not about either of us taking in the frustration, but rather the space to be able to express it. And it was pretty fantastic, actually. Hey, Sam?
It was. I think if we can make a little bit of frustration a little bit fun, that's what we were trying to do yesterday, you know, to sort of get at not the negative feel or immersion into frustration, but what is it really trying to get us to see or get us to hear or get us to try and do or get us to think. And there was an attempted insight, hi Anna,
Hey, Anna.
to turn that frustration into something else. So I think that was a nice chat that we had yesterday.
you met in person?
No, just on Zoom.
How far are you apart? Can't be too
About,
much.
what, 90 minutes, maybe less than 2 hours. And I still haven't managed to, you know, I haven't visited any friends up in Canada simply because I've been so wrapped around with work and with family and the house. But I do think after the beginning of the year, I'll find an excuse to go drop in on Tammy if she's okay with that.
Yes, we do have what one might call a wall between us. It's
But still, we all exist in 3D space. So, yeah.
have to make sure I don't drag my dogs along because her cat Chili, I think, will probably eat the dogs. I think that's the phrase I heard.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, she seems really sweet, and she is. But both, unfortunately, children and dogs. I think she must have been terrorized by kids when she was a kitten. So she's terrified with them. And I didn't realize that right away. But I remember a few years ago, there was a toddler that was here, and the toddler was kind of coming up to her, and she put her hand up like this, which really looked like she was waving, or the kind of like the stance of the Asian money cat.
Yep.
And yeah, and I was like, wait a second. What's actually happening is she's not waving at the child, which is what the child thought, but rather like ding, 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 getting ready. So now I'm very careful. We separate them.
I have a cat too here. I love this. This cat is called Hira. So this is my girlfriend Lindis, by the way. So,
Hi.
Lindis.
Hello, Lindis.
Hi.
She totally loves that cat. It's beautiful. So hey Anna, good to see you.
Hi, Anna.
You're muted.
I have a weekend all by myself. My husband went with our youngest daughter on a father-daughter weekend in the mountains, or the hills, rather. It's in between. So they met there. She from Hamburg, and he went there, and so he'll come back tomorrow. But I thought it was really great that they just, and whatever and they are doing. And I was meditating a lot yesterday, at least 2 hours, and today I was snow shoveling. It's really like, yeah. So I'm all by myself and pretty relaxed. That's the latest from me.
Has everybody else checked in?
Most of them.
I'm not sure, I came late, but I
think it's
have.
your turn.
It was rather casual, so Anna, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. I just came from a Five Rhythms dance. There was a sort of Christmas party type dance, and it wasn't particularly Five Rhythms. It was just free dance, and it was great. Lovely to be able to move and to just listen to music, and yeah, that's my relaxation. That's what I need. And it's snowing, but it's not settling, so it's cold, but it's okay. It's Christmas, so everybody expects it to be cold. That's me.
Yeah, just very briefly, it's been just about 1 or 2 degrees above freezing here. So the roads are frosty and some places are icy. But I was so wrapped up in the trip last week that I just took about 4 or 5 hours and took a nap yesterday, which so I am awake enough to find the right link this morning.
Wow. How was that trip, by the way? You held a speech there?
Yeah, I gave a talk on Tuesday. I kind of described it on Thursday, but I do think I am a bit pleased about how it turned out, even though at the last moment I was wondering how it would. But the follow-up from it has been that I've already had several customers talk about their interest in what I was speaking on. And so that's actually got me a nice slate of follow-up for the next month or two. So that's good for me. It keeps me busy and hopefully keeps me useful.
Wow.
And thanks for asking.
And by the way, Schriesheim is 1 hour and 44 minutes from here.
About 55 kilometers? No.
It's 140.
500, yeah. I was just joking. If you were driving 256, then it would be about 500 kilometers.
I don't.
But Sam, what did you speak about? I'm really wondering.
To give the talk on our AI and machine learning position and activities at eGain. And I am I'm lucky enough now to be given the title of Technology Evangelist at eGain.
Ah.
It's a Technology Evangelist title, which means I don't actually have to deliver anything other than talks and papers, which I like. I used to have to deliver product. I used to have to hire people. I used to have, I used to run engineering, which is at that time about 130 people. And so now I get to move here to Washington, which means I don't have to do that direct management of people and product. And it's a role I much more enjoy. And it's a role, actually, I think that the company needs more than if they need a VP of engineering. Well, that's arguable. Anyway.
But you still didn't say what you talked about, Sam.
Oh, what we did was we did a number of experiments. And when you actually go to a website and the company has a website that says, hey, click here for help, eGain's products allow all of those help channels, whether it's a phone call or a chat or a self-service portal or whether it's an automatic chat bot. So usually if you have to click, what is this about? Companies that make you fill out a big long form just get in the way. So usually what you really want to do is just say or type what it is that your problem is. But the problem is that now means that the company's software can't really figure out what that is. Well, we applied machine learning to our corpus. We have a long history since we've been doing this for about 20 years. We just study the history, and it turns out if I just look at the first 2 sentences of what people type, we can do a very good job of inferring the intent behind that request. So whether it's a product return or something doesn't fit or you want a discount or where is the product, I haven't received it yet, there's a handful of categories that are usually what people are trying to get at. So we applied machine learning. It turns out we can actually do a very good job when we assign that chat to an agent and already say, we think this is the topic that they really want to talk about. So then we can reach into our knowledge base and then pre-fetch a lot of those solutions or guides or FAQs or whatever knowledge the agent really needs so that the agent appears very on the ball, that the company really knows the customer, that they're really, smart and they can quickly solve the problem for our customers. So just adding that bit of intent inference actually goes a long way towards making these chats and these sessions more effective and more enjoyable with higher customer satisfaction. So we actually showed some good success of that, and we've already got about 5 customers interested in experimenting on that with us. So that's what I spoke about. And thank you for asking.
That's really fun. Have you worked with artificial intelligence?
I was wondering if we could have, this is fun. Oh. Glenn, did you have something?
Oh, yeah, I was just wondering how long you've been working with the artificial intelligence.
So briefly, I got my degree in mathematics at Stanford, and after working 2 years, I went back to Stanford for 2 years to work in a AI program there. So didn't actually do a PhD or any kind of a degree. I just did 2 years of graduate work, but that was with some of the famous people, Ed Feigenbaum, Penny Nee, Bruce Carnegie, in what used to be called the HPP, the Heuristic Programming Project. Now it's sometimes called the KSL, the Knowledge Systems Laboratory. So ever since mid-'80s, I've been in and out of these and working to build expert systems originally in the '80s. And anyway, so for quite a while, I've been in and around AI. Thanks, Glenn.
So interesting.
But I think that's off topic given this call. So Tammy, I think you were about to say.
Well, I was wondering if we wanted to co-design our session today, and I love the open spaceness of it, but I wondered if we could pose some questions to each other or propose some. I'm really excited about this of injecting more fun into our sessions, but I don't know if you can hear me because you're all frozen.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
But you are frozen for us, Tammy. No.
We hear you.
You can't hear us.
Tammy, I think appears behind a slow internet connection.
Doug, did you check in earlier?
I think you're on mute, Doug.
Oh, here's Tammy back.
Yeah, Tammy's back.
Does the universe want me to step back?
No. Just continue. No.
We heard what you said, Tammy. You just froze for us. Oh, is she frozen again?
Well, we heard that Tammy wants us to inject a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
And then I think that's about when she dropped off.
You're back. Yeah.
I think so. I'm not quite sure what's happening. Some internet glitches.
Yeah.
Anyway, more fun. Maybe pose some questions for each other. Like, what do we really want to get out of being here? Or I don't know. I thought I would suggest we co-design a question that feels really rich and juicy.
I have a starter.
Well, we had a session, actually it was with Erin and Glenn. I think it was the end of a session, and Erin was suggesting a fun thing to do, which was to have a session where we completely don't collaborate. So completely the opposite of what we're actually trying to achieve. We play out all the possible negative ways of being.
I don't like that idea.
I don't want to do that either.
That's a dangerous game to play.
It's a dangerous game to play.
But it will be fun.
Will be a fun idea, but dangerous. But I really like.
Very chaotic.
But I think it's great if we can have like role playing and stuff like, and yeah, absolutely do some fun stuff, or I don't know, like if someone's given a role, or yeah.
We had some in one of the courses I attended, that brought back memory when you talked about it, Tammy, about your frustration and bringing lightness and humor back to that. We called it turn on the volume. so it's not only loudness, but also like exaggerate. When you have a frustration, a complaint, or whatever that might be, something you're not happy with, that you just everybody. So in our group, we had a group that met weekly, and sometimes we went for a walk, and then somebody came up with something frustrating. So, and then everybody said, okay, and what else, and what is it? And then we put in our not opinions, but our yes, like men are all evil and da da da, and you know, everybody just joins in till it's so exaggerated that you just need to laugh. So it's like as if our brains were at the beginning, it's like reasonable, and you're stick with the complaint, and then more and more it becomes so ironic or so over the top that even your own brain can say, okay, yeah. So it was so much fun when we just went for a walk, shouting in the woods and things like that. So
that does sound a bit like Aaron's suggestion.
Exactly. And Anna, me saying no, I didn't want to do that, was playing the game. Just so you know.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Right. Well done. Yes.
Yes. By the way, I don't know if you guys know this this kind of college dorm-ish kind of game, but anytime someone shouts Shatner at you, you're supposed to overact. You know, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the original Star Trek, William Shatner. That was his reputation for overacting. So my daughter and I do that together here at the house. She'll yell Shatner at me, and I'll say, I don't like this chocolate. And so, you know, I have fun with overacting. But I think that wallowing in some of these negative things could lead to some laughter as well.
I love the exaggeration piece, and I actually do love the non-collaboration piece too. I like it both, and that overacting fits in. Doug, do you have some pieces to weave into this pot?
You need some sound there.
Now Doug appears frozen.
We see him, but
we're not hearing you, Doug.
Doug?
I wonder if your headset is not plugged in properly all the way or something.
Maybe he's teasing us.
Maybe. Nope, not yet.
And you say something really nice, but like you could probably exaggerate that too if you kind of don't want to have the like negative things, because maybe there's enough negativity in the news. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. But like you can really exaggerate, and it can be very, very funny. And I kind of, I don't know, I would think it would be fun to also maybe exaggerate this positive thing and sort of really optimistic, or I mean, maybe even absurd. I mean, but like sometimes if you overdo it, it becomes absurd. So it's sort of about the tone in which you do it. But if we kind of create the right space, then I think it doesn't matter, and we can have a lot of fun with, you know, all kinds of difficult things. And I think that's also what's most fun and most interesting, is when you can take maybe dark things and really complex things and paradoxes, and you can create something interesting out of it, and you can laugh about it, and at the same time you always see the opportunity in it. So there's always something to learn from it. And that's the kind of way I feel about it, that this is this space, and when we share things in the space and we have this openness, we have this interest, we have this friendliness, then it doesn't really matter what it is. It's being shared, but being seen, and it's sort of, yeah, okay, so that's what this is, and it's interesting. And something heals and something develops, and if it's the right kind of space, it's like we could bring anything. So it's more about how we do it, right? That anyway, that's how I feel. It's about how we do it, and if we sort of find the right way to do it, we can share anything, and it's gonna work.
I think it needs a setting, as you said, like we have an agreement that we can say anything, the most absurd or whatever, and we take it like an exercise or a practice, and that anybody can say stop. I don't play this game anymore, or it's too much, or whatever, and that we set a frame and say. Sometimes when we have something, everybody can say whatever they want to say, that we say time out. Okay, time out starting, and then when somebody says, okay, time out, so when you see that sign, you just say, okay, sorry, I have to say something about it, and please take me seriously now. Not, so that we have rules to play by. And a clear end to that exercise, that we are not dragging it into normal conversations again and maybe hurting people and by chance.
Those all sound good, and it'd be nice to kind of write these rules down to and test agreement on them. I love the idea of a safe word, for example, or a safe sign. And timeout seems to be a great one. And I feel like it's important to have some potential for tension, or maybe that comes out in the role that you might take on. So maybe we want to do a little bit of thinking into the different roles, positivist and, whole poker inner or something.
Religious overdose.
Yeah.
I want to share when I was in the training, in a consulting training, they sent me out of the room, and then I came back, and the whole group, I should talk about something. I talked about children's nutrition. Okay, so I started my my presentation, and then one person, I didn't understand you. Can you say that again? The next one was just sipping her bag up and forth. The other one said, oh, that's too much for me. Or the other one was talking to the neighbor. I don't know what. There were 17 people, and everybody had something. I was like, I didn't know that they had decided to do that.
You were set up.
Oh my God! I was like, and I reacted, and after the 12th person, I just cracked up. I was laughing. Said, "What did you decide? Well, what's going on here?" And then the teacher, the trainer said, "Oh, you're pretty good." That most people they leave the scene after about 5 or 6 people, and then I had to go out, and then there were 1 or 2 that kept that attitude, but the others were normal people again. But after that, it was so easy. I mean, it was like, but I really didn't know, because at the beginning, I didn't know anything, what they had decided. But that was hard stuff. Yeah. But fun. After a while, I thought it was fun.
Just one more practice I want to toss in here, and that is that in other groups, has this not been good?
Your sound is soft.
Oh,
Level
Very
is
low.
soft.
we heard you, but it was a little low.
Yeah, I wonder, Sam, if your mic, where it's placed, right? Because the other day when we did a session, I heard, when I listened back to it, I heard the mic move and then the sound went down. So anyway.
Let me fix it before I say any more.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, that's okay.
It's back?
Yeah.
Good, yeah.
The cable on the microphone got jostled. I'm sorry. So one of the things that other groups have done is in these cases where we actually do try to be more peer to peer, there are certain times where it's useful, we think, for someone to say, today is going to be Doug's day, or today is going to be Tammy's day, or today is going to be Glenn's day, or Anna's, or Gertrude's. And then that person pretty much says, here's what here's how I would like to guide or moderate the conversation today. And they could choose whatever practices or topics they want, and we just devote it so that that person gets their round of exploring what it is that's curious to that person. And if we do that for a series of conversations, then at least we would have one person who's hopefully not frustrated through that session, and then explore what that person is trying to do. And for us, it kind of worked out well to actually let people devote certain days or certain meetings just to let them see what they're interested in. And it also provides a different way for people to see how meetings can be moderated. You know, we don't necessarily have to check in with a half-hour round every time. We could actually go with a very fixed set of topics and actually, you know, push that as far as it can go. So it kind of depends as well. So anyway, I'm tossing that in as possibly another practice that might be.
Well, maybe that can be mixed into what we've already talked about, and that there is, maybe there's a person that is picked to be the person that's presenting or something, and then the others are poking at it,
Right.
or something.
Right. So not in any kind of collusion sense, but when Tammy and I spoke yesterday, I did suggest to encourage Tammy to schedule or even call a meeting for, let's say, even Tuesday or Monday or whatever the heck it is, and say, hey, you know, how would you like to just push on some of these topics that you're interested in? So that's partly behind that suggestion.
Yeah.
So
It
Tammy,
reminds me-
why don't? Sorry, Glenn.
No, you can go. Yeah.
I was going to suggest that Tammy take this session, that she wanted to do some fun. Why don't you moderate this session, since you have an idea of what you'd like to do? And then other sessions, other people can either volunteer, or we can make a list where we put our names down for another session.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm happy to steward. What I've heard so far from the collected group is that I do like the ideas that everyone has brought in terms of just playing up, acting up a bit. And I'd like to, so if we were to stay with, so I'm testing for agreement, because while ever I think it's important to steward, what I'm really looking for here is to co-design things. So it's not a command and control thing. It's a how do we serve what is present and include everyone's contributions. So I have a sneeze coming on. That's an unintentional contribution. So anyways, so I like the idea of the non-cooperation, and just playing that out a little bit. And I think that we can include that in this, in terms of creating some tension there.
I disagree.
I know you do, but that's the fun. Thank you.
That's the tension.
Thank you for playing. And I also like, I'm just trying to feel back into Gertrude's suggestion suggestions. And Glenn's. Okay, so what? So I also like the idea of having roles. That's kind of what I was hearing into when I was listening there. Can I get a little bit of a hand to synopsize what else has been put in the pot here? Because I've heard my ability to be coherent is a little. I've got a lot of ideas dancing around in my head, and I need help. I'm going to toss it over to someone. What else have we heard to throw in the pot of this game?
Well, I want to add to the pot, which is both playing the game and compounding your problem. I think is a double move. So there's an exercise that I call the gauntlet, and the idea is that each person gets a turn, and they have to make the following two statements to each other person in the group. And then the questioning stick is passed. And they're actually not questions, they're more statements. So the first statement is, what I love about you is, fill in the blank. And the second statement is making a meaningful, substantive, risky suggestion to them, something you think they should do or change or think about.
Oh.
I would like to test the I would like to test the safety of the group for that, because this can be really real. And I want to make sure that everyone feels okay about including that.
Yeah, and it's only meaningful if it's real. This is like real deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have always hated those sort of, I remember being in groups where you have to say something nice about the person next to you or the person opposite or something. And I hate it. I just hate it. I don't know what else I can say. Because, is it because, I can't find anything? It's because it sounds so insincere, because it sounds so smarmy, so, and I would never believe what anybody, or even if I believed it, it wouldn't mean anything to me because they're having to say something nice. So, for me, I hate it. It's just the opposite of where I am.
Well, what if you find something nice? I mean, if we know each other, I'm sure we're capable of saying something nice about everyone, which is genuine. And I've done that exercise, and it's amazing. It's because if it's real, if you say something you really like about the person, that's the rule. You have to find something you really like, and you say that, then it's amazing, because it makes us learn how to appreciate someone. You look for something, and then you see something. So, and with Doug's suggestion was to say, and maybe I'd like you to try this. Like if you say that in a smooth way, that's fun. Like, yeah, I like this, and I could see you go this way. And I think it can be a very inspiring thing.
Anna, just to share, this exercise happened to me as a little add-on punctuation mark of a parenting course that was very not this. It was redirecting children's behavior. It was how to be rational parents with kids. But there was a mini gauntlet at the end that the instructor of that course threw in, and it was singularly the most uncomfortable experience of my life. So I absolutely get everything you're saying. And it also ended up being the seed crystal for the complete transformation of my life, because of the discomfort. Because we were asked, after asking the questions, the last thing to say was, what do you want in your life? And my response to that was, I wanted to feel better. And it took 15 years to get there, but it started a process. But I hear exactly what you're saying.
So I have a question, Anna. Were you pre-playing the game of non-cooperation, or was that actually what you were wanting to propose?
Well,
I
a
think
bit
it's
of
really
both. Sorry, Sam, carry on.
No, I was just intentionally asking, answering in that my read was that was what you sincerely believe.
It was. It was what I sincerely believe, but I also sort of exaggerated it a bit in order to make it a bit more colorful.
Yeah.
It's already working! Yay!
You did well. Yeah, you got us fired up.
I think the fundamental questions are good, but to have it be in a prescribed timing, as in I have to go after you and I have to say these things at this moment, to me feels more guided than I would like. Now, if in the spontaneous course of conversation, as happened with me yesterday with Tammy, I ended up really, well, trying to express as sincerely as I could what I saw of Tammy's generosity. And I really tried to give it as clearly as I could state it. And it wasn't forced, and it wasn't something that, was like, hey, it was my turn to say it. But I don't know, Tammy, I'm hoping that that was something that you felt was not just because I wanted to say it, but that it was sincere.
Well, I rewatched our session, or most of it, last night, and what was most interesting about it was where the tension was. And where I was holding tension with what you were expressing, which was frustration, and you were holding tension with what frustrations I was expressing. And that was actually really interesting to review and watch. Some of you are frozen on my screen, so I don't know if I'm being received.
Well,
Yeah.
we can see you and hear you.
And hear you.
Can't see us.
Great. So moving this little game along, Gertrude, I wanted to include some of what you had said, but it's dropped off. It's dropped away for some reason. I can't remember exactly what your pieces that you were putting in were. There was hand signs, but there was more directive. There was a more directive piece in there that I wanted to include.
What I said, that the setting must be good. Then we say, okay, from now on we do this. And if somebody's uncomfortable with it and needs to step out or say something about the process itself, not the participation, they can say, okay, time out. And the one who's facilitating sees it, and then this person has a say and say, okay, I need to say this and that, and then time out is back. Okay, and then we can go back into that, and then we have to wrap up and say, now it's complete, now it's over.
Okay.
That was one part, and the other one I just put 4 questions in the chat. And Doug, I understood what you said, and I could get that it's
Sorry.
Pardon?
I don't have the chat. So if you can read them out, that would be good.
Okay. Those questions are, we do them after coaching training. So people have been together for 8 times 2 hours. And at the end, we say we want to celebrate. And people are asked, so this is also a formal thing. Then we say, okay, you have 4 questions. The first part is you say the name and say what I appreciate about maybe I just translated it, so the grammar might be not the best one, but what I appreciate about you or in you. And the second is what I'm grateful about you. And then the second part is what I'm interested in you. Like, I would like to know if you da 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 da. And what I can really imagine well for you. So it's not this, I want you to change something, but it's more like an open, my thoughts about you. So, and it's maybe not for the very first time, but after some time we spent together, this is so great. We had one woman who couldn't speak because of tears, and because she said, I never ever heard anything like that. So this is like a twist to what you said, Doug.
I wonder if we can do a little modification just to also include Anna's pushback on the questions as framed, and also turn it towards what we're doing here. Because for me, I'm looking for some long cut shortcuts in terms of us. I mean, we've gone on a long cut here twice a week since September 30th, as well as all the work before that. But I think that it would be useful to pose some questions that are more about the group itself and why we're here. I'm curious about that, just in terms of us doing some appreciation, but also looking at the challenges and the frustrations. So maybe we can be a little bit on the nose in terms of what's going on right here in this group. And so in terms of the rules, what I've heard that I really resonate with is to be bigger, make it bigger, act it up, to have people feel comfortable taking on a role that might be only a part of what they think, or it might be fully what they think. I would love to have one of the questions be, what do you, in terms of appreciation, what do you appreciate about this group and this process? What frustrates you about this process? What would you like to, what are the challenges, speaking of global challenges in the micro, what are the challenges and frustrations that you experience? What are you interested in expressing and exploring here? What we would imagine for into the future for us as a group. So it's kind of using, there's not the appreciation and the gratefulness that Gertrude, I would kind of put to the first one, but I'd also like to lift up the carpet of the frustrations so that we can see some of that too. And I'm thinking that let's just do kind of popcorn style, whoever feels they want to go first, and do a round on each question, and have some feedback in between each one, that people, when they're answering, they can also feed back into what they've heard, so we can practice that weaving of who it is and what we are as a group, and to feel free to be fully yourself, and to feel free to put on a role if that's what you want to choose to do, so that we can be a little more playful and not take it so personally. In the make it big. So I'd like to see or test for agreement in terms of those rules and ask for additions.
That's good. Okay.
Totally agree.
I like it. I see this taking quite a bit of time, but I do like the process.
I love it.
Maybe, maybe we wouldn't get through everybody, but I think it's good to do.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I absolutely love all of that. And also, if we have a friendly space, I mean, we're all friends, we're all great people, and it's gonna work. So, yeah, it's like, I think we can just say what we want. It's gonna work. And we choose our roles, and we learn while we're going. So, absolutely, yeah, all for it.
Okay, well, I'm still following up on Anna's suggestion, which is that Tammy moderate this session. So I'm going with that for now.
Okay.
Sorry, first, does anybody have children's TV on or so?
Yeah, I can hear it too. Somebody's got something on.
I think it might be you, Glenn.
Is it okay? So
It's in the background.
Maybe just mute yourself when you're not. Yeah.
Thanks, Glenn.
Okay, so Sam, are you recording?
Yes, I am.
Can you stop recording and start recording? So this is the beginning of a new session, and Sam, can you count us in?
Hang on one second. If I hit pause.
No, not pause. You'll have to stop and start again.
I did stop. Okay, so
we are playing a game. It is, what is it? It's the 10th of December. And we thought we'd play around with some, maybe this is a little bit of an acting exercise. Maybe it's a little bit of a truth-telling exercise. But I'm stoked to have, to inject a little bit more fun. So into our sessions together and to play some games. So what we've talked about is, and we've co-designed together, is to do some rounds where we look at 4 questions. What do you appreciate about this group and this process? What are the challenges that you are experiencing? What are you interested in expressing and exploring? And what do you imagine for this group in the future? So people are given direction to be exactly who they are or take on a role. And part of this is to be able to explore tensions that arise and differences in how we understand things and how we express things, and to give people license to be able to play in that space. Gertrude has suggested timeout as a tool that we can use if anything's ever getting too much for anyone. And in that case, we can stop what we're doing and move into a meta conversation or whatever seems like the right way to take care of whomever is needing a pause or a stop. So I would invite anyone to jump in with an answer to the first question, which is, what do you appreciate about this group and this process? Did I miss anything? Okay, awesome. Anna, if you want to be, if you want, if
I want to be provocative.
Go right to what frustrates you.
Well, I enjoy these conversations. I really I look forward to making this connection. But I'm not sure that this is a process. I haven't really seen it as a process yet. I don't see it going towards something. Well, and I also do have a bit of frustration about I guess I'm sort of comparing it to other conversations that I have, where I feel I go deeper on a personal level. And I find that particularly fulfilling, to be able to relate on that level. And that doesn't happen in this group. So there's a positive and a bit of a negative.
I would invite, I wonder if we do have any questions so that we can go deeper. So I would test that as a question for this group.
Well, a quick response is that because we do want to hear from everyone, sometimes we take a breadth first rather than a depth first approach to things. And that lack of being able to really drill in on any individual person or individual topic, simply because we feel, we want to hear from everyone at any point, might, I think it does for me, might be similar to Anna's sense that we don't go deep either into one individual or into one topic. That's my initial response. If I may also ask Anna, in the one-on-ones that possibly are derived from this forum, do you feel that those give you a chance to go deep into a person? So is this a good way to introduce people to each other and to allow that deeper one-on-one? Or is this forum just innately or inherently inappropriate for that kind of depth?
It's a different intention, I think, yeah.
So I want to go a little deeper. Because I really think that's a really important sort of disconnect in terms of going deeper on a connection and personal level as happening in a context that's not part of a collective and collaborative, emerging, generative, whatever, fill in the blank. That we sort of have this preconception of you're either doing that or you're doing the other. And I don't know that that is real or required or a truth, that it has to be that way. And that in a group of people coming together, connecting and collaborating and with sort of a generativity intention, that the other can't and shouldn't also be there in terms of intimacy, and the intimacy as in the into me see construct of intimacy. And I wonder, I just question whether that's a legacy thing of this industrial construct, which is in work you don't do that because it's a competitive, hostile environment, and you don't reveal things, you don't expose yourself. It's just not safe. It's not okay. And so I wonder whether this is sort of a reflection of that. What you just shared is sort of a reflection of that here in microcosm. Like that's part of what you just touched. That's what came up for me anyway, and I'm complete.
Well, it's interesting because it's making me think why. And I guess the other conversations that I'm talking about are not necessarily one-to-one, but the intention of them is that you bring an experience or a problem that you're having that you would like the group to focus on. So I think that is the difference. And you're right, I think, Doug, in that sense, that we don't bring our intimate concerns here, that this wasn't set up as that. And I don't know whether that means that we don't share intimacy because of that. I don't know. It's an interesting.
I feel like we have been pretty intimate here. I've had that experience. I mean, I guess I also can feel where we are skating around on the surface, in a sense. So I feel both things. And maybe it's because with my experience here, I have gotten really kind of naked, if you will, raw. I've been very raw in the space. I've been very showing of that. And so my experience includes that. And from others. And maybe it's partly because I really read people, you know, my eyes are always scanning on the screen to look for the micro expressions and how people are responding and these things. So I'm reading the field at the same time. And maybe that, and yeah, so I just wanted to put that piece in.
Which is why it's a little ironic you're not visible on the screen right now, Tammy. You're also
muted.
Sorry, I'm smoking tobacco because I do that. But I don't want you guys to see that or anybody else.
You see that intimacy that we don't want to reveal.
There we go. Band-Aid ripped off.
It's going the right way, Anna. Yeah.
It's so interesting. Like, I feel like I have to lean out of the screen to have a drag of my cigarette.
Well, now that for me would be a really interesting topic. This shame that we feel about habits that we have.
Ah.
Yeah, talk about getting real.
So I'd like to land for a moment of, you know, in terms of expressing what I appreciate and love about this. And I'm going to weave in the challenges. So, you know, for me, this is about really connecting with people on a deep level about where we are and what we need to do. And the first step is twofold: understanding our context and understanding who we are and what we bring to the table. And so there's a lot of early work that's been done in being able that hasn't been really brought out to the group. Like, I put together a survey that had all of the questions that were in the Global Challenges collaboration in it that haven't really been surfaced ongoingly in the group, but it's work that's been done. So there's a frustration in there in terms of having done work that's not really received. Now it's my responsibility to put that work out. But there's also a capacity issue with being able to take in and agree. And this is back to the core thing of the governance building project of the Global Challenges collaboration was focused around. And so there's some unclarity around the purpose of this group while we find our way in looking at, you know, who we are, what we're looking to work with, influence, create together, and being able to invest the time, energy, attention in really understanding what we're each bringing. That's the big work. That's a big piece of work that has a lot of resistance, cultural discomfort in really showing up as yourself 100%, and telling the truth about how we see the context. And so those are tensions that we've been experiencing, oftentimes in a glancing way or a sideways way, because it's just sort of feeding into what people are experiencing in terms of frustrations that they'd like to see shift. And we're building the tools to be able to be as clear as that in our communication. I'm here to learn how to better communicate and to better connect at a really deep level with people. I'm here to share what it is that I've been working on developing and creating over the last couple of decades. And I'm looking to take some real action to help to navigate the challenges that we're facing in the world today. So those are all big ticket items that my heart and soul and everything that I'm about is deeply invested in. And I'm frustrated that I'm not able to always articulate that in right timing, in right action, and in right word.
I just want to remind us that this was supposed to inject some fun into the situation.
Well, I'm smoking.
I think that was great. I thought that was fun. I think it was great. Wonderful. Yeah. Should we continue with the?
Yeah.
Should I try questions? Yeah.
But before we do, did Anna get a chance to complete her 4 questions?
I thought we were going one at a time and kind of weaving in the first 2.
Oh, okay.
I think I had enough time. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I think I'll just try to take all of them together because for me it's sort of connected. So I'll just read the question first. What do you appreciate about this group and process? What are the challenges and frustrations? What are you interested in exploring? And how do you see the future? So what do I appreciate about this group and process? I think this process is incredible, and I think all of you are incredible. I've been working on ideas of my own for many, many years without really communicating with many people about it. And I always had a feeling that there were others who were working on the same things. And I just had this intuition and that I had to find them. And now in the last year, I've started to get to know people, and I see you and I see every one of you have been working on similar things. And you have a slightly different approach, and some of you work longer in some areas than others. And there's some areas where I haven't really known what to make of it. And I just see some brilliant ideas. And there's some areas where I feel that I've been working on something interesting. And when we come together like this, there's so much that we each bring. We have so it's sort of overwhelming for me. And I certainly hear that with Tammy, that you have these decades of work, inner work and thinking. And I feel that with everyone here. And so it probably takes some time, and maybe this is one of those processes where it's going to take some time because it's very deep, and it's the external, it's the internal, it's the personal, it's the future, it's the project, it's all of those things, and it's coming together, and it's like it's a totally new kind of mind which is emerging all over the world. And we're just some people, there's so many others. And I sat on the boat today and talked to a good friend of mine and his wife, and I mentioned this. She asked me if I had some suggestions, and I said that because she's a great painter, and I told her about Instagram and how my girlfriend Lindis has met some great people through Instagram, through just taking pictures, just sharing her stories, and how it's like now we can be our authentic selves, and by doing that, we meet others who are working on something similar. So it's like it's this natural selection process where you get to know people who are actually interested in very many of the same things, and you talk the same language, but also you talk different languages. So you have a potential to learn. And that's the overarching motive that I see, is this emergence. And I believe that this intelligence comes from something much greater. It's a global emergent intelligence of the whole ecosystem, of the whole nature, and we are nature. Remember, as human beings, we are part of nature, and we're a big part of nature. And I really believe there's many forces happening which we can't see, and even the hardcore materialist scientists say that. I've been reading Dan Dennett's book, From Bacteria to Bach and Back. Even he talks about an emerging intelligence, which is beyond what anyone can see individually. And he's talking about the AI, and maybe the AI is just one expression of it. So for me, this whole process now is an adventure. It's going into a totally new time. It's like nothing before, and it's a world of possibilities, and it's dangerous, and it's weird, and it's crazy, but it's something so big, which is happening. And in that, yeah, there's challenges and frustrations, of course. Like for me, it's like this feeling of being overwhelmed. Like there's so many ideas I have about all of this, so many things I like to say, but how could you sort of get it out all at once? And it seems so such a big task. And for me also, it's very difficult to be disciplined, as sometimes I just feel like doing nothing, or I don't know what to say, or it's difficult to be open and honest. But sometimes if you try, it's good to try. Maybe you gotta try many times. But yeah, time, having the time, distractions for sure, and a lack of self-confidence, and sort of this negativity which is often there, and shame. Yeah, it should have been so different. I could have been so different. And why have I wasted all these possibilities in my life? Looking back at all the, incredible gifts that I've been given. But at the same time, seeing there's so much amazing here anyway. But then it's always like, yeah, so time is going, and it's like you don't have forever. So it's like at some point you gotta turn the ideas into action. So that's a big frustration for me, that I have all these ideas, but I'm like, how could it materialize somehow? So what am I interested in exploring? Like I've said some about that already. So many things. I do think that artificial intelligence is an important part of it. And I don't like the expression artificial intelligence, because I don't think that's what it is. I think this is an emerging intelligence, and it's memes, it's information, it's humans, and it's all coming together. And we're living in symbiosis with machines, and what happens with machines depends on what happens with us. So for me, the future of artificial intelligence has to be connected with the future of human intelligence and human consciousness and human communication and human media. And the media, I mean, it pisses me off that there's so much crap in the media. I think the media is unreliable, and I think it's negative, depressing, and it could be so much more. And I would like to see a media which is inspiring, uplifting, practical. And I think that's what we're doing here. And having this space to share, it changes the media. So what am I interested in exploring? The relation between media and the inner world and the practical world and everything in the world. And I really believe that there's an opportunity for humanity to begin anew now. We can actually begin something like from scratch, and there's truly amazing opportunities. If we really get our minds together, if we really use the potential which exists now, use all the gifts that each of us have, I mean, there is truly possibilities for something really great. I believe that. And I feel inside, sort of intuitively, that actually, even though it's a chaos, it's actually going in the right direction. It's this weird feeling. It's like there's this weird chaos, but it's like something is growing forward. And what we're doing here is a part of it, but it's something really big. So I'm interested in exploring all of this, but explore how we can turn it into reality. And when it comes to how I see the future, I see the future as undecided. It's open. It can go anywhere. I think it depends on us. It depends on me. It depends on how we move, and that every action that each of us make has big consequences that we don't see. So even though we don't see it, it has ripple effects. So Doug mentioned this, that this act of us coming together here, talking about the global future challenges and opportunities, this is an energetic act which really does something. So if so what we're doing so far is already really meaningful, as far as I can tell. And if we only do this, it's still really great. Like, but we can still do a lot more. But I think it's really meaningful already. And so how do I see the future? My hope for the future is that one day all people in the world will manage to live happy together. And then when they figure that out, they're never going to look back. So that's the future I'm hoping for.
Who's next? I'd like to, sorry, Sam, I see you're just ready, but I'd like to put a word in, a made-up word from one of my roommates. We were having a conversation and we were thinking about, and she made up this word called performity. And it's kind of similar to what we're doing here, is the meaning she had in her mind. Sam, can you look it up? So I looked it up on the internet, and it's not a word, but there is a word that is that came up as a, oh, did you mean? Performativity. And performativity is a really interesting word. And I want to chop a couple syllables off because, you know, might as well have some fun with this. But Sam, when you got it there, maybe you can read out what performativity means. And thanks for doing that Googling. What I like to call G-search.
I just put it into the group chat. And on Google, the definition of performativity is language which affects change in the world and functions as a form of social action. And it was first defined by philosopher of language John L. Austin. It's the capacity of speech and communication to act or to consummate an action.
So part of the inspiration and intention that I have is that through communicating our ideas and through communicating who we are and through being authentic and creating and documenting that media where we're exploring that as a way to communicate together, that creates action in the world. So when my friend Yo made up this word performity, which would be perform, and ity means being in the state of. It captures this action of communication to affect change that I feel is part of the intent here. So I just wanted to throw that little pebble into the pool of our ongoing performity.
Tammy introduced this to me yesterday. I was even shocked that it was a notion, because the idea that language is a vehicle for effecting change, to me, is just so ingrained that I didn't know there was a word for it. I didn't know there was an alternate role for language.
But it sounds like this is the spoken language. Is that right? This is
I would
not the
extend
written
it.
language.
Yes, it is. It is performed.
Yeah.
And so examples of performity is marrying someone, or what were some of the other examples, Sam? When your words enact an action. I see that this space is a way to enact action, especially in terms of collaboration, because, you know, conversation is how you enact collaboration. And within the conversation and communication is what you might be agreeing to, exploring, developing, designing. And so there is a strong element of performity in this space, in what we're up to.
It also includes rituals, incantations, spells, prayers, all sorts of things.
Look at you getting all witchy, Anna.
I added the quote of choreographer Merch Cunningham. He said, "I explained it when I danced it."
Tammy, you're muted.
Oh, there's an acting term which is show, don't tell. And it is kind of also explaining it as you dance it. You know, we can't really tell people what we're doing. We have to show them. So we have to dance it out on the screen with each other as we're feeling each other and knowing right action and right words. And I would invite others to jump in.
I will have a go. And I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to start with an intermediate step in the future. I'm going to imagine a state where 6 or 10 or 30 or 3,000 or 30,000 of us have engaged in a history of such conversations and one-on-ones and dialogues, where we have spent weeks or months or possibly years supporting each other's work. At first loosely, but over time in a more aligned and coherent way. So that by the time we get to be about 3,000 or 30,000, we actually have a fairly effective way of communicating initiatives, models, thoughts, wishes, plans, actions, decisions, charters, visions, that we can summon up others within this community of 30,000 to basically lead a charge to go take a hill, whether it's to, define an island, or to build a shop, or to build a nonprofit, or to help a village, or to do something else, where we can summon such friends and colleagues and get very quick, effective action. Because in my belief, between 3,000 and 30,000 is enough of us to show the world we can do things differently. And if we can show the world that we can do things differently with, a model of governance that we have evolved ourselves in an emergent way, in a way that, is consistent with our values and the way we want to live, and doesn't feed into corruptible influences, hierarchy models, patriarchal models, say what you want about any of those value-laden words. But it's done in a way that is drawing from the talents of all and doing it in a means that is good for the common and is done in such a way that is transparent, so is uncorruptible or as close to incorruptible as possible. Then I think that is a model that I am very, very focused and committed to create and co-create with all of you. And in all of my explorations with other groups and with other initiatives and practices, this group is most willing, in my current experience, to co-evolve and co-create those. I think each of the other ones I have sensed either lack of time or lack of generosity or lack of receptivity, or even just, I don't know, lack of generosity, that there's always been some other model that's already there that somebody wants everyone else to buy into, rather than to co-create with each other and to do it from ground principles and from ground values. And so I would really enjoy if this particular group can stay that open, that learning focused, that receptive to each other, that trusting, so that we can actually co-evolve that new model of creating what we could call an eighth continent. You know, we're on the verge of exploring this new cyber continent. There's very few outposts out there. There's Amazon, there's all these outposts that look very much like the real world, but we really haven't taken advantage of the cyber element of it that says we can create something totally new. And we haven't imagined that well enough. So I'm here to try and do that with the 5 of you, the others who are viewing this, others who may come and join this group in the future, but to really examine what are those ways that we can identify each other? How do we answer those questions that everyone asks? Imagine that, you know, we're out here, each of us, wanting to enjoy this group so much that we want to tag our best friend over there that's not yet part of this group. But what do we tell that person? How do we describe this group? How do we describe, you know, who else is in there and what they're concerned about, and how do we actually take action, and how do we align ourselves, and how do we conduct ourselves, and how are we going to manage assets if we manage to get them, and how do we manage to actually affect change? And until we learn how to communicate that, you know, we're not yet able to, in a compelling way, attract that friend and have them join this call. And until we think these things through, we can't communicate it. So yes, there's a little bit of frustration, only a small amount, because I really much enjoy this process. But the frustration is that we each want to grow this in such a way, but we haven't yet learned how to communicate it. Or we do it each our own way, and we do it differently, and then those different ways set up these expectations that are just waiting to happen. And that's what I'm trying to minimize. I'm trying to minimize these expectations differences that can lead to disagreements and possibly conflict. So I do apologize for some of you who think that there's too much emphasis on words, on technology, on tools, but they do serve a purpose. They serve a purpose that we will give them, okay? We don't want to buy into the purpose for the designers of those tools. We want to use those tools as effectively as we can in order to achieve our purposes. So I've kind of gone backwards. I paint a vision of where I want to be with the rest of you and a larger community. I really want to identify those things that we do need to decide and solve and, you know, take action on. And in order to do that, we need to have that meta conversation of how we make those decisions. How do we do certain things? You know, how, and that's why I've kind of produced, and it's an imperfect model, but at least it's a suggestion of how do we create these how-tos. And then if it's imperfect, let's improve them. But, you know, we should always have something that we can point to say, this is the current best practice of what we know. And if it's explicit and shared, then it can be improved. But until it's written down and explicit and shared, how do we improve it? You know, I can't go into any of your brains and improve whatever's there. You can't go into my brain and improve what's there. You can't see it. So the only way right now we can actually share and improve these things is if we actually create artifacts. Call them documents, or call them maps, or call them models, or whatever you want, okay? Simulations. But only by creating these artifacts can we actually say, this is the state of our current knowledge or our current practice, and now we have a basis on which to improve. So that constant learning, constant improving is what I'd like to see. But until we have that shared memory, that shared repository, I don't know how to do that. Okay. So this is kind of a long contribution / mini rant about how I'd like to get those artifacts created so that we can share this process where we can loosely first support each other, you know, where I can support Tammy, I can support Doug, I can support Gertrude, you know, Anna, Glenn, and over time we find those opportunities to be more than just loose. We can be tighter. But to force that tightness immediately at the beginning is too much. We don't understand enough about each other. We have to go through all these differences in terminology and differences in practice and differences in values. And, you mean this by love, I mean this by love. You mean this by completion, I mean that by completion. All these kind of little difficulties. So I think the loose collaboration is where we can start. The tighter collaboration comes later, in my opinion. And to do it with these ways to make things transparent and explicit is a key step towards doing that. Either that, or we do things very loosely and ad hoc, and that's just the way we choose to do it. But I would like to see something that can scale, and I don't know how to scale other than by sharing things and having those discussions. So I don't know if I've answered all of those 4 questions, but that's my contribution to today's process. And as Doug says, I am complete for now.
Thanks. I just want to interject real quickly that everything you said there, just yes, yes, yes. But there's one little thing I just wanted to ask, and that is this description which is in the group now is that we meet twice a week for these chats. I mean, that is something, isn't it? I mean, it's more than nothing. And that is that's a kind of structure that we have. So like, I feel that we're getting there.
No, I don't want to. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, my feeling is what is being left out here is it's a sort of a faith. I mean, it may even be connecting with what Glenn was talking about, but I feel that if we have something real of value here, then people will be directed that there is an overarching beneficence. That's all I can call it. I don't know what it is, but there is a power which is actually directing all of this. I believe, like Glenn believes, that it looks chaotic, but it's actually going in the right direction. And we are part of that. And I'm really indebted to everybody who has spoken so far, because I started off saying whatever it was that I said, I enjoy being here, but I don't see much happening, sort of thing. But actually that isn't true. And every time I listen, that's what fills my heart. I realize that there is really something happening here, but it's not something that you can put your finger on. It's not something that you can write down. And actually, that's why it's so valuable. Sorry.
I'm just playing the game. I'm disagreeing, but please just go. I'm just poking a little bit.
No, I'm happy for you to disagree.
Okay, just 30 seconds then, maybe 20 seconds. I really fundamentally am very confused and very flabbergasted by this seeming dichotomy of not wanting to write things down versus the value that we get from these conversations. I have in no way tried to demean or diminish the value of these. In fact, you see, I'm one of the people that shows up fairly regularly. And I do enjoy this, and I do love what we're creating here. And I do see the possibility, and in fact, I even said so just 3 minutes ago. But I do think that there's this, maybe it's just me, but maybe it's this underlying current that we have this reluctance or reticence to write things down for some reason. And that we want to not share things via written word, which is very confusing to me. And I don't know why that is. Maybe I'm misinterpreting what's going on, but that seems to be a recurring theme here. And I don't understand it myself. Word has been one of the greatest inventions of this thing called human beingness. And I don't understand why we don't want to use it more effectively. Over.
Well, I mean, I don't want I think it's fine to write down, but I don't think it's necessary. And this book that I am reading is talking about how the written word, how learning to read and write actually influenced society to going in a different and what we would call a wrong direction. That every time there was a lack of literary education, there was a much greater equality, a much greater tolerance of, and he goes through all the different civilizations and shows how the introduction of, but that's not my thesis. I'm just saying, I don't feel it's needed, but there's nothing wrong with you doing it. I would support you doing it. But I also see what this guy is saying. It's an amazing book. That
Can
there
you
may
write
be.
down the name and the
Yeah, it's right here. It's Leonard Schlein. He's actually dead now, but he wrote this, I think, at the beginning of the 20 something, either the end of this century or the beginning of this century. And his name is Leonard Schlein. Yeah, and for me, it just reaffirms something which I have felt, but I don't want to argue that, because it doesn't seem necessary to argue it. I think we all have different things that we're attached to, different personalities, different things that we feel are important. And I understand that for you, writing down is very important, and it may turn out to be, like you say, a really important way to connect other people, to advertise what we're doing. It's just my feeling doesn't go that way. And my feeling is people will come. They will be guided.
At the risk of ping-ponging, Anna, do you have a good friend that you would like to invite to this group? And if so, how would you describe this group and what would you tell that person?
I would tell them just to come and try it. I would say, we're talking about collaboration. And if you want to come, you're very welcome. I have introduced people to the website. So I sort of connect people to the website and then think, well, if they want to join it's up to them. Yeah, I have thought of telling people, and I would just tell them to come, and it's open, isn't it? That's what's so lovely about it. It's totally open. And like you said, not just it is open to new people, but we in ourselves, it feels to me, are really open to evolving in whatever way it feels it needs to evolve. We're not saying, we want to stick to this way of doing things, or
So I might jump in for a moment. I know Gertrude and Doug still have their jumping in. But one of the things is that in something like this, the people that are motivated to know that a certain piece has to be in place, what I would suggest is that's your job. If you're motivated to do that, then you go for it. It will serve the whole. That's why you have that burning need to express it.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing it, then that's just going to roll through as frustration. And so if you know, there's a doingness to what it is that you think. So for me, I think that having real generative conversations with people like this is part of what can hold us coming together to collaborate in meaningful ways. My challenge is, you know, it's hard for me to specifically articulate this multifaceted jewel of transformational potential that exists on the planet that I kind of feel in my soul. So it's brilliant. You know, this is my challenge. This is, you know, the purpose and what drives me, right? And I'm cool to be honest with that. I don't have it all figured out. And more to the point is that I can't figure it out in a vacuum. It has to be with other people that are like, oh, I'm going to flag that up for you, Tam. Or this piece needs to be there. We need some how-tos. We need some grounding purpose if that is agreed amongst this group. If that's the case, let's do that. There's a doingness to all of this that's required, and the frustration arises when we're not listening to the whole system, and by the whole system, that's every one of us. And when we have the courage to be like, hey, this is the piece that I think should be in there, that is positive action, performity, one might call it. And
can I just say, I don't think it needs everybody to agree. I think that's been Sam's problem, that he's waiting for people to come on board rather than just going ahead and following your drive, like Tammy is saying, just do what you feel is necessary. And, you know, maybe it does feel lonely. And in a sense, we're all in that situation because we all have things that we feel, you know, this is important. This is what I want to bring. You know, I think we need to just accept the fact that the group will support anything which is contributed.
Yes.
Thanks, Anna, Tammy, both for that. This was visited last night with Tammy and myself. And yeah, I think I take that theme to heart and I will run with it. For the record, I did write up a number of how-tos, including a how-to to write a how-to, and was myself cautiously trying to not appear so pedantic and prescriptive that this is the way things have to be. But I will go ahead and generate more because I think that it is illustrative to generate more. And so long as I don't get a timeout, I'm going to offer them as contributions, and I'll see what happens. Okay.
Great.
fly your freak flag, man.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I was just gonna say, isn't everything we bring valuable? Like, everything we bring is valuable. If it's valuable to you, it's valuable. That's what you should bring. And some people don't like it, so what? Doesn't matter. Great, bring it.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not valuable. I'm just saying that, you know, when you put two pieces together that were generated in different lands, they may need a shim, they may need a seam, they may need some tooling to put things together. They don't necessarily fit together right away. So that's just the model I'm adopting here, you know.
So I would love to hear from Gertrude and Doug, just so that there can be a more fulsome wholeness in our expression.
Well, I'll go. So I fully appreciate, align with everything that's been shared. And my reason and my experience of these conversations and this group is that each one of us showing up is a generative act and contribution of time and attention. And that we're creating value now. This is what it looks like. And that it's an emergent field, and within that construct, through my lens, there's lots of stuff from the legacy systems and reality we currently live in that isn't required and doesn't have to inform or be part of this. And so in service to what was the question that Fabian and I tackled 3+ years ago. So what's the sort of essential stripped down, boiled down core deal here? From the standpoint of me as a generative contributor and community member, and what's my best value and contribution, and what's the path or vision for how the transformation can happen on the larger scale, the overwhelmed scale, Glenn. Like, what's the reality of that? And so some of the things, I guess where I want to start is some of the things that we jettisoned from the legacy paradigm, the industrial setup, is the idea that I, or Fabian and I as a partnership, or I in the context of a larger collaboration or group of people, are the source of that transformation for anybody else other than ourselves. That, the sort of scope and limit and boundary of my contribution is me, like I control me, that's my total scope of dominion and control, and me as part of a larger group, that group's generative effort and contribution is whatever it is. And so that means letting go of control, authority, power, and it also involves jettisoning the idea of me as source of somebody else's salvation or transformation or improvement of circumstance or whatever. And what we got to was that what's the essential sort of frame that were every human being working on that as a common starting point would win the day, would affect a global transformation and get things aligned in the place that all of us want it to be, right? And so what we came up with and what we got down to was that whatever it is has to be human being centered. That means human being centered in real time, in experiential reality application, moment to moment, because each moment is a new generative potential. And so what's the foundational starting point for that informs human generativity? And that's how we landed on the values meme. And not values as something proscriptive or imposed, but values as something co-generated and collectively agreed to, or accepted, and as a collective, aligned, consensual expression of, in generating, however we're going to generate, we all believe in and agree to these principles. And we sort of evolved a set of principles around the idea that, values are cumulative, non-destructive, and that they're not to be confused with morals, ethics, religions, doctrines, laws, codes. That values are that, are more foundational than that in this context. And that it's all of us or none of us. The third piece of the puzzle is whatever we generate individually, as part of collective or community or collaboration, and as a species at large, it has to be in service to the commons. It has to be in service to our planet and to the biome. So that's like the basic, simple, frame. That's the paradigm, the setup. And then we sliced and diced and macerated everything to a clean sheet of paper that exists today, and said, how do you do that? And all sorts of things changed. It's literally like putting in a new set of eyeballs. So I want to bring it to cases, because this is an abstract. It's really concrete, rubber meets the road stuff. So Sam, you are of technology, of data, information, communication capture. What you do in the AI work you're doing, right, is finding meaning in unstructured input, like making sense out of something with a machine so that it can be correlated. But if you think about it, it's in service to a human being sitting behind a screen, providing an answer and providing value to a customer who has an issue or a problem. It's human. Like, you're working in service to getting to a human thing, right? So the last piece we got to, Fabian and I got to, which was really interesting, in your space, like right in your world, because we've been working on, I've referred to it before as the collective metacognition machine works. It's the fantasy platform for supporting human beings working and playing together. Like, what would that look like? And the thing that we realized, and Anna, I think this speaks partially to what you were raising about that discontinuity between words supplanting and diverting from understanding, from connection, from all sorts of human-related things. And technology in an industrial frame is related to as an exogenous thing. And
sorry, what's exogenous?
Meaning it's something that operates outside, but that affects or generates a response internally to a living being. So an environmental impact on a biome. Okay, it's outside. And if you were to think about technology and affordances and designing a platform that was truly in service to human beings, what you end up with is a very different design approach, a very different kind of specification, because it's endogenous. the technology is ever present underneath the human beings that are interacting and exchanging and co-generating and contributing. And it needs to be so much more biological. So much more biological. So is the platform and the technology and the capture and the resource aggregation necessary? Absolutely. But in service to what? And available and resourced and made useful to who, in what context, when, is the bigger question. And the truth is, the technology is capable of doing either. It can either be this exogenous thing where you use an app and you have a repository and you or you can put the technology and design the technology in service to us right now, this minute, capturing the video, translating the audio to a transcription, doing text recognition and word frequency and all the analytics, and setting it up so that it is contextually resource available for when Sam and Tammy and I are in a session 8 months from now invoking the same words or themes, and on each of our screens pops up an icon that says, you know, you guys have been here before. If you want to check that out, click here. That's like what's needed. Different, right? So, and it's this contextual thing. It's trim tabs of what is my orientation toward, what is our orientation toward a problem or a solution or a conversation or exchange or whatever it is. It's a reorientation. And on one hand, it's simple and it's subtle. On the other hand, it's really overpoweringly different. Really different. And so my frustrations here is I have a lot of thought and concrete expression of what I just described, fleshed out, multidimensional. But one of Fabian's and my catchphrases is, we're not selling anything. There isn't a product, there isn't a black box, there isn't an application, there isn't a thing around this. It's about shifting paradigm and perspective and way of thinking. It's unlearning and centering up around human beings being together and doing us differently. And having that inform on a design principle basis, on a values basis, on an architecture basis, on a spiritual and emotional understanding, connection, social basis, having that inform us and to be generative at a much, richer level and connected at a much richer level. So I hesitate to do what I just did. Because I don't mean to get on the soapbox, and I don't mean to impose my stuff. But I do very much agree with and believe in everything that was shared, and want to say to you, Sam, yeah, you have an idea around this, a burning, you have burning desire around this data-centered capture, resource generation, creation as a byproduct and value that's being generated here. I have a lot to bring to your party. I would love to support you in that, and I'd love to introduce a whole bunch of stuff that I think you would find really interesting from the standpoint of going about it completely differently than anybody in the technology and software world currently does, including the AI people who, to me, AI is pattern matching, and even on its most extrapolated basis, it only gets to 82%. It doesn't solve the last mile problem. But there was a woman in Australia and a poet monk out in California named Charles Cameron who came up with the glass bead game, which is the game of random resemblances, connections, correlations, which only human beings are capable of making. That is a game that if human beings played it, would create the last mile database that AI requires to actually do it right. Because it has to source that from human beings, like a little school kid in the museum who makes a move in the glass bead game. It's called Semble in the Australian version, where he says he plays a church organ and a pair of manacles that were both on display in the Australian National Museum. Now, what do you think was the common denominator between the two that he came up with, that only a human being could connect the dots on? They both require keys to work. And that's the game of Semble. Resemblance, connection, random connection. So that's meaning, that's human being centered stuff. That is worth capturing. Anyway, I'm complete. I apologize for a huge run.
Man, you demonstrated it, man. You demonstrated it. That was so good, Doug. That was so good.
Little bit of passion there, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. This is where I'm living. And this is the generative space out of which so much of it is hatched, so much of it is challenged, where I'm tested to figure out how I can speak to you, Sam, where you live, and Anna, where you live. And Anna, I do coaching and I teach a Jungian weekend workshop, and I'm in your world too. And I appreciate your world, and I honor that human heart, spirit-centered thing, top of the heap. But they're not separate things. They need to be in service to human being, and all of a sudden everything starts to rationalize and make sense. It's like, oh.
By the way, I do want to support that, Doug, and I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to those conversations. But my entire career in Silicon Valley, it's too easy for me to be identified as a technologist. But in the very first encounter with Doug was the appreciation of him in the augmentation model. That technology does need to augment human capability in service of human capabilities. And yet so much of Doug's work and so much of the next several decades of his work, including my embrace and extension of it, whatever I can do, is so misunderstood as technology focused. And that's where I really do separate from Silicon Valley. Even physically, I've separated myself from Silicon Valley in order to get more whole about this. Okay, so it may not be necessary, but I do want to go on the record and say that that's why I am doing what I'm doing, is because I want technology to help our capabilities. And I'm not about the next great, iPhone or X phone or whatever the heck it is that, is something to be worshipped. That's not what I'm trying to do here.
I didn't mean, by the way, to suggest you were in that box. I know that because you're here. the fact that you're here is like, thank you. Thank you. Because I'm not you, and I desperately need you to put wheels on what we've seen.
Good.
So,
So let's
yeah.
start with that loose collaboration and let's find a way to make it tighter. Yeah.
Gertrude, did you want to bring us home?
Oh. What I appreciate in this group is exactly this. Sparkling eyes, when Doug, when you shared, or Glenn, or even also sharing concerns and frustrations, and there is something like an underlying humanness, where we are related as humans, as people with the same burning something, and to really make a contribution, to really have this world work for everyone, and each one bringing something else to the table. I say the hors d'oeuvres or the dessert or the main course or whatever. I mean, like, it wouldn't be a whole meal if not everybody would contribute. And I really, really love that. And some month ago, no, even before that, so when our first last daughter was through bachelor, my husband and I, we were standing in the kitchen, and then he said, well, this is the basics. I mean, we achieved really a lot, having 3 adult daughters, knowing exactly what they want to do, and being a contribution to the world, and being able to have their own lives, and everything is everything beyond that is freestyle. so there is something like, there is something why I'm here, and being source of appreciation for people and organizations is my mission. So but this urgency, or this I have to do it in order to, this is fading away. I don't say it doesn't exist, and when Trump accepts Jerusalem or so, I really have specific feelings. But there is something, as if there was a knowing underneath, that the world is already a good place. That the people that are here are the right ones. That there is nowhere to I don't know. I'm coming from already complete and perfect, and then what? You know, I mean, it doesn't diminish where people suffer. I can feel that, and what Ken Wilber said. So it hurts more and it bothers you less when you develop. So as if that was, I don't know how to say that. There is this urge, and there is something that we want to do in the world, but it doesn't come from a place, it's all rotten and I have to do in order to, and I have to reach something. So for me, it's like, it's already perfect how we are together, and for me, it's very relaxing that I can just show up and be myself, and that's enough. I have so many other construction sites where I need to be a certain way, or I need to make money, and I need to whatever. So being together, sharing us and our desires and our we are together because of this challenge, and that brought us together, and for me that is enough. So, and I don't say that nothing comes out of it. The contrary. But I don't want to have goals that I have to achieve. I don't want to be pushed to do a certain thing. And we created Women Matters and Meet There, and Anna joined. And I was just thinking, I think Ben, Timmy, you know him, that he would be perfect for here to invite. Just thought about him. Ben Roberts, I don't know if anybody knows him. And I think there is also, we cannot pull the grass to grow faster. So there is also a time for everything, and something that's like evolving over time. And I'm thinking of this. There's a mushroom that's called Hallimasch in German, and this mushroom can fill, I don't know, several acres with the mycelis. But it starts with just a few one, and that spreads, and that goes beyond, and then there are others, and this is like, and whatever you said, like Doug, when you talk, there is a part that I cannot follow, like with the whole technological part, but this value part, when we wrote the book, there was this thinking behind it. And I very much resonate with what you said. And when I see the future, so there is no, I cannot share any frustration. Sorry. And it's even, for 2 weeks I couldn't come. So, but it was not like, where have you been? And you didn't say anything. And, like, yeah, I feel so accepted being me, and that that I'm here on purpose, and that if I have to do something else, I just need to do that. So just being here twice a week, I mean, it's like, where do you do that if you're not forced to? I mean, this is incredible. I don't do that normally. If my heart doesn't sing. And just looking at your faces, seeing the glowing when Doug shares something, and Glenn, when you shared, there is a part when I feel that it comes from your heart, then I can listen for a long time. And I think this is sometimes when we try to make it right, then the sharing goes into, talking. And then this is losing the connection, and then people don't like to. I think I do that sometimes. Yeah. So look at thinking about the future. It's, for me, the future is now. So creating what I want to have as you, I presume that the world is working for everyone, and even the sentient beings included. Then let's act as if it already is, because it is. So does it. That's for me. And technological wise, I had a friend who died of ALS, and the last days he got a screen where he could, like Stephen Hawkins with his eyes, to write texts, and he didn't survive that for a long time. So, but this was like, for him, he was a man of word. So when he couldn't use the mouse anymore, it was like, that's it. And being able, I mean, he was too sick then to use it, but this possibility to, just with Stephen Hawkins, I mean, what could he do? I know how that is when somebody is that sick. And I'm really, when that serves this way, the technology, then I think it's wonderful. Yeah. And it's so great to look at each of you, and there is a specific feeling I have for each of you that that has this underlying thing and a personal part. And yeah. And one last word is, what I learned is that love and appreciation is not just a feeling, but a conversation. So when we don't talk that way, it's hard to feel it just like that. Just. Thanks for being you and being here with me. For me, it's a real big gift.
Thank you, everyone. There's so much here. And I am noting we are 2.5 hours in, which is wonderful. And I wonder if we might if we might end on a little wrap up of what we've either learned today or what we've learned through this experience and process. I think that some of what, just to kind of tie it up, so I would test for agreement on just doing a final round on what we've learned. Noting that I think this has been fun, certainly, but not as overtly fun as I was kind of aiming for. But I mean, you know, I think that I have more value for the depth of sharing than the lightness that happens up here when we kind of just are having some fun. So this is fun. So I would test for agreement on doing a final round around what we've learned or what we're learning. Does anyone want to begin?
Well, yeah, I'll begin. I just could never have predicted from where we began that we would have such a full, creative, generative time. I just feel deeply moved by everyone, and I feel really complete, actually. Even where I began, which, you know, I can see that I was in a place that I was blind. That's what I would say. I was blind and now I see. I mean, that's what happened. But it happens inside me. There is something that gets filled up by this conversation. And I guess I was empty when we began. And I was expressing that, oh, you know, there's not much happening here. And now I feel I've moved, and thank you everybody.
I will say that one of the things I think I'm learning about myself is that when I speak in what I believe is passion, it comes across as frustration, and sometimes the love underneath doesn't come across. So I have to learn myself how to express myself better. And some of that is halfway intentional. I like to poke at things at the boundaries. Tammy knows this. I like to find different ways to expressing things. And some of those ways, you know, I half laughingly, half jokingly call rants myself, which may kind of detract initially from how people take it. But underneath it all is a very deep appreciation for this community, this forum, the way we do things, the receptivity that I find here, and the opportunity to find those places where we do connect, either here or offline or separately, so that we can explore some of these things. And the fact that I do want to make these connections and make some of these creations, whether they're human creations or technology creations, doesn't really matter. It's both trying to serve the greater purpose, which is how do we co-create this world that all of us want to live in and leave for our children? So that probably doesn't come across often enough in my, little rants that I sometimes do. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I want to improve the way I express some of these things. Over.
Can I come back on that? I mean, we don't have time to go into that, but from my point of view, I don't think that that is an accurate assessment. And it would be really good to have the time to go into that. That's all I can say, really.
Thanks, Anna.
What Anna said.
Thanks, Doug.
I can say a few things if that's okay. Yes, I so agree with you, Anna. Really, really enjoyed this conversation. Everything everyone has said today has just been gold. And when you started, Anna, you said that you had this wish of a more personal conversation where we could share openly, and that's exactly what's happened. And Tammy, you talked about playfulness, and I just feel that that's a part of the recipe that we need. And there's been playfulness, but it's also been very serious, very deep and genuine, and playfulness can be that. And what you said, Sam, about figuring out 30 people, 300, 3,000, 30,000, and we figure out a new way of doing it which we can show to the world. It's like, yes, I want to do that. That's what I want to happen. And as far as I'm concerned, that will change the world. And I'll even say it stronger. I think we are changing the world simply by having this conversation. Even if we don't see how, we actually changing the world. So this is doing it. And also like what you said, and Doug, I mean, I so love everything you said because you talked about the human-centered use of technology, and at the same time, this is technology transmitting the signal, and you were just going on saying it, the song of the human being, and it was just so great. And like, why have we not figured out new ways of thinking bigger about technology in a more organic way, where the technology is with us, where we're in symbiosis with it, where we use it really intelligently for the greater good. And maybe we've started doing it, but we've only scratched the surface. Like on a larger evolutionary time scale, how long has the internet been here? It's just like one moment, and we're just having these super machines that transmitting signals with the speed of light across the planetary surface, and we've just been playing along like children with it, and we don't see, hey, we have superpowers, and we're just sort of starting to figure it out. And like what you say, the human being, this is what the AI is all about. We're the ones who tend these machines. We're the ones who created them. I mean, they're our children in a sense. And they're a strange invention that humans have created. And probably we know of nothing similar in the known universe as this network of information transmissions. And like if we could really use that to for real values, like in the values manifesto, and I read through that, and it's these shared values that come out over time, and we've seen it today. We've seen it today in this talk. There's many, many values we all share, clearly, and it's here, it's in the room, and we're capturing it. And also, like Gertrude, like you say, to just have a place you could just be yourself. Yeah, I think that's amazing. Like, and we can just be ourselves, and whatever we share, it's valuable. And because some people will resonate more with this, and some will resonate more with that. So we're just bringing things into the pool, but it's all real. It's all real experiences. It's all actually part of what we experience. So it's a document for reality and from reality. So, I mean, even if we think it's imperfect, it doesn't matter. I mean, it is what it is, but it's real. And then we're learning. And like, yeah. And I also like feel that there's so much inside. It's hard to express, but I think we're getting there. We're step by step, and I feel this is a slow process. Yeah, I really agree with that. Like you also said, Gertrude, that no, it's not like this is slow. It's like one step at a time. We can't rush it. It's like growing a garden, and I think this is what we're doing here is more like a 10-year thing, but like in 10 years, it might be truly great, like something like nothing before. But it's so many things that come together. Um, so it will take the time it will take, but yeah. So, but today I just feel it's all been total gold, and I'm really thankful to all of you. It's been just pure inspiration. Yeah.
So for me, I am really happy. And this was really generative. And I feel like there's a deeper, richer, and bigger sense of knowing that I have of each of you and you of me. And it is emergent, and it is an emergent and organic process. And I don't worry about time. Like I set myself free from that. And time isn't really relevant in the scheme of things. That it's about the center of gravity that's formed by us coming together. And the strength of the gravity that we generate in doing this will, to Anna's point earlier, it will draw people, and it will draw additional time and attention and energy and contribution. And that's much more of a biological than industrial thing, which means it also holds the promise of viral propagation and exponential growth and generative potential and all of that. And so, Gertrude, you said something really powerful that sort of nailed it on the head, which is the reality we seek exists. It's just it's about revealing it. And as more and more people align and connect and sort of start pulling in the same direction, it'll become clearer. But I really think we're in an emergent time, and the fact that our culture and media is so preoccupied with the ugliest of our doings doesn't mean that below that there isn't just an unbelievable emergence globally in all sorts of ways and places on an atomized basis, and that all of that aggregates and maps to turning the ship. I think it's happening. And so this was good for me. And I look forward to next. And I'm complete.
Your cosmic laughter, Doug. And thank you so much, Glenn, for acknowledging each of us in this process. I just had two images. One is my husband is a photographer, and he started with analog technology. I mean, today he has digital, sure, but and what I found amazing is that giving the exposed paper into the developer, things emerge. So it's existed before, but over time it just comes out, and that is very, very yeah, when you just said that, that reminded me. And another image that's more biological is sometimes in spring you have the buds out, and they just, but it's so dry, or it's sometimes they come out and then they hang their heads, and it seems as if they dry out, but then all of a sudden with the sun it opens up. So maybe we are in the first bud phase where you think it's over or you think it's hard or whatever, and then all of a sudden the blossoms come out. Yeah, I really loved that today. And I realized 3 hours now, but it doesn't feel like this, because most of the time we are together, it's timeless. And I have two things, one of which, Doug, I would love to have a conversation with you, just one-on-one, just to make some things clearer, and maybe to have that then shared. And the other part is, I told you that I want to translate my book, and it's very hard to do it by myself because my colleagues can't help me. Their English is not good enough to do that. And I thought maybe that could be a project where I don't need your doing, but you're listening, and you're just a frame in which that can occur. So, because it's beyond normal work, I just do it because I don't have a clue, I don't have an editor, I don't have anything. That I just have to do it by myself and then see if it lands. So yeah.
I would love to help you with that.
Pardon?
I would love to volunteer to help you with
I
that.
can help with that too. I've done that before.
Great. So it's a matter of just having a frame in which I do it. So people listening and being just listeners, and maybe really hands-on support for native speaking, because my English is not bad, but sometimes I draw German sentences with English words. Yeah, so that came up, and thank you very much, Tammy, for leading that game.
Thank you, everyone, for co-leading with me. That's what I'm aiming for. And I notice, not just in this place, but in other places in my life, I'm also looking to co-lead. So I notice that what I'm learning is to stand in leadership while inviting both feedback and contributions to how that might look like. So that's what I'm learning, and I feel fantastic about how today went, and I really feel that we co-created this game, that we kept each other on track as a group, and while I played a leadership role in terms of facilitation, it was a group effort, and not only in the guiding, but in the deep level of sharing that happened. And it's so beautiful. It really, there was a moment just a few moments ago where, Gertrude, where you asked to meet with Doug, and immediately tears sprang to my eyes, because that's a part of what this is. It's like, you're interesting. I want to really get clear on some pieces, and can we invest some time into each other to be able to take those next steps? And then such a beautiful ask to have help with the translation project. And, you know, 3 of us have put up our hands to say, yes, we would support that. And, you know, and so part of what I see is it's a dimensional birthing is the best way that I can say it. And I recognize that language has its limitations, but it's like we're understanding these different dimensions of relationship, and those relationships are birthing something between us. And it's deeply nourishing. That's why, you know, we're like 3 hours in, and there's real biological needs, like I got to go to the can soon. But it's also, you know, it is deeply timeless. And so there's something beautiful here that none of us could create on our own, and is an investment of every one of our lives and lifetimes. Like, you know, I've got 47 years in now. All of this has contributed to it. Be neat to do our collective years we've been on the planet. You know, how many collective days we have. And what that brings, because we are greater. We are greater than we know. And so today I feel like, and there's many other times that this has happened, that this birthing, this becoming more, this moving into a different dimensional shape has happened in our relations together. And today there was a really strong continued birthing of that collective action, of that performity. We are calling it into being through, and we're dancing it into being through this this connection with each other. And so I'm so grateful and nourished and held and appreciative of everyone for your contributions. And Glenn, I do want to again underline Gertrude's appreciation for you taking something of everyone. Like, you did that so naturally and beautifully, and that's really just demonstrating what it is to notice each other and what we all bring, and daylighting that that appreciation is powerful. Today was awesome.
Yeah.
3 hours.
3 hours.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Till the next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
We'll see you next time.
Beck, do you have Skype or any possibility?
I put my email in the chat for you.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So, yeah, you can, if you email me and we can figure it out.